Hello and welcome to my very last Parks and Built Environment Council Committee meeting of December 10th, 2025. I am Councilmember Vogely and my co-chair is Councilmember Ryan, and also on this committee is Councilmember Ben Zarlingo. We have a couple things on our agenda this evening, first of which is the downtown parking update from staff. And although I know the staff, I will let him introduce himself. You are.
As Corey gets started, I'm just going to jump in and say I will be with you guys for about a half an hour, and then I'm going to head off to the Snohomish County tomorrow General Assembly. And then Lori will be here for your regular meeting. And Corey is ready, so go for it.
Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Councilmember Vogely, Councilmember Ryan, Councilmember Zarlingo. Tonight, I'm here to talk about, sorry about that. Tonight, I'm here to talk about downtown parking. And we're going to talk a little bit about the current challenges we have in downtown right now with parking. We're going to discuss the 2019 study that was done and presented to council. Some recommendations from 2019, some recent stakeholder input from the summer, and then an opportunity for some questions when we get done. So parking in downtown is a balance of all kinds of parking facilities. It includes on-street parking, off-street parking lots, parking garages, including the Everett garage, some bike and scooter parking in the furniture zone, really all types of parking you can imagine, some special uses as well. Parking problems in the downtown are really a measure of success, and in many ways, and on-street parking needs to be managed to provide a high quality and convenient product. In 2018 and 2019, Public Works completed a parking utilization study and financial analysis and presented a compelling case before the council in February 2020 that it was time to move to paid on-street parking. 2 months later, we were in full COVID lockdown, and parking downtown was easy to find. We shifted to setting up short-term stalls for Uber Eats and other delivery services in front of businesses to manage the influx of short-term parking and help those struggling businesses. Parking occupancy at that time was a shadow of its former self. So fast forward 5 years, and here we are, and downtown seems to be heavily parked in the afternoon and evening again. And demand for parking downtown seems to have returned to pre-COVID levels. So what's our current strategy downtown for on-street parking? It's really about customers and patrons. That parking turnover is a key to a healthy parking product and a healthy business climate. The time limits downtown are mostly 90 minutes, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. with some 30-minute stalls, some special uses like loading zones, passenger loading zones, and disabled parking stalls. The city has a repark ordinance, which means you can't repark your vehicle and stay another 90 minutes. There's public and private off-street facilities intended for longer stays and for often monthly, people who pay monthly. There's enforcement to maintain a healthy parking situation downtown. Outside downtown, we have a residential neighborhood permit program north of 41st Street where residents can apply for a residential parking permit and park in excess of the 90-minute limits on those blocks. The residents need to live on that block. There is no residential parking permit downtown, which is the point of that. We're also encouraging other modes, public transit, bicycles, pedestrians. Some concerns I hear on a regular basis from the public. Parking's hard to find. While it only takes me about 5 minutes to get my hair cut, a cut and color at a typical salon can take in excess of 2, maybe 3 hours. So for some people, 90 minutes is too short for many patrons. There's many other businesses that have a greater need than 90 minutes. That there are events that are adding to the parking pressure downtown, both evening events and weekend events. There's concern about employee and resident reparking, and that's part of the issue downtown with finding available parking. While nobody wants to pay for parking, I do hear that, often that the current strategy could be improved upon. And people were hearing some concern about impacts from the proposed outdoor event center. The 2019 study, I won't go through this whole slide, but it was really to update a 2015 study and expand the study area to include the new Metro Everett boundaries, and to work to build a community understanding and consensus around parking solutions. This slide is meant to demonstrate that what might happen if we had unrestricted parking downtown. If you look at the number of downtown parking stalls back in 2019, it was about 2,000 on-street stalls and 7,300 off-street stalls. While the off-street stalls are not as heavily occupied, you can imagine what would happen if there was an open source of free parking downtown without any limits. We've been very successful about attracting events here in Everett. There's over 12 major venues, and most don't have designated parking. We do attract about 1.75 million in annual attendance for downtown. And there is the future outdoor event center that will add predicted 100 events every year. So you can see that there's a lot of events downtown. One of the things that is a challenge with downtown events is no two events are the same, which means no parking is the same. People come downtown, they try to park in their favorite spot, and now they can no longer park there. This is the parking triangle. This is how we like to look at parking. Anything that you'll see in the upcoming slides that's red is considered constrained supply. That's 85% of the parking stalls being occupied at any given time. Of course, we've all seen 100% occupancy on certain blocks in Everett. If you're in the green area where you have 55% or less occupancy, you really have no parking problem. But just about every other stall is available for parking, and there's really no reason for any restriction. And what we would like to see is a lot of people coming downtown, and about 70 to 84% of the supply being taken up. In 2019, we did expand those boundaries. You can see that we, for the first time, took a look at the area around Everett Station, and then we did expand the downtown. We did an occupancy study, and a utilization study, and a financial analysis. What we found in 2019 was that during the day, weekday, parking was not terrible. The constrained areas were kind of limited to the area that you might see in blue there in the perimeter. However, when we got into the evening, that expanded. After 6 p.m., there's no longer any time limits until 8 a.m. the next morning. And parking enforcement, dedicated parking enforcement has gone home for the day. So it's up to patrol. On the weekends, on a Saturday in the peak hour from 2 to 3, you can see a lot of red throughout the downtown. Again, there is no time restriction on Saturdays and Sundays, and there's no parking enforcement. This slide's a little bit busy, but what it's meant to show is that about 6%, 6.5% in 2019, license plates, vehicles were observed moving to evade parking citations, and about another 5% of vehicles just parked and stayed in a stall in excess of 5 hours. So roughly about 1 in 10, about 10% of the vehicles in a unique vehicles parking downtown was in violation. And about 34% of the stalls were impacted throughout the day by people staying longer than the timed limits. What do we do about employee parking on street? We provide as many options as we can. That includes transit and alternate modes like Lime scooters. We get out and we do enforcement during the day. We have dedicated parking enforcement in Everett. And we seek to provide an alternative at Everett Park, affordable off-street parking. There's also this idea that maybe it's time to go to paid on-street parking. And that would encourage some drivers to park in off-street lots. A quick discussion of paid on-street parking. What is it? It's a combination of smart pay stations these days, smart meters in every stall in some cities, and smartphone applications. The smart pay stations take credit cards, they take cash, they take tap. Some of them do tap only, like the smart meters. I think one of the important things that's important about having stations rather than just going app only is that the capture rate on people who are using the app is about, on average, about 20%. Portland has the highest capture for app users at about 60%. And so this allows many of the people who might need a lower barrier option just being able to pay cash. That's what pay stations do for you. Paid parking is it is easier to enforce than, say, going out and chalking some tires and doing time limits using an automatic license plate reader. A vehicle's either in violation or they are in good standing, and so it's much easier to enforce. What it's not is it's not a huge revenue generator. In my discussions with Salem and Bellingham, both of them did not indicate that it was generating a lot of revenue. It was generating revenue. It was better than revenue neutral. But it's paid parking is something that's done with purpose to improve the ability of patrons to come downtown and do business, to have a high quality dinner, see a hockey game, walk around town, or do all of the above. So any excess revenues can be used to benefit the downtown and bring in new venues to support the downtown mission. This is a quick look at off-street parking in Everett back in 2019. You can see that red is highly utilized, green is underutilized. And so if you look at most of the sites, it was pretty much moderate utilization throughout the day. On the weekends, another story. Parking is pretty much free on street and unrestricted. So you see less use of the off-street lots and more use of on-street parking. And so by industry standards, utilization on the off-street parking is low. The recommendations that came out of the 2019 study were interesting. They were to create an effective administration decision structure for downtown parking, to hire a downtown parking manager, to reboot parking enforcement, and to extend enforcement to include Saturdays. The largest scope in the recommendations was to implement paid on-street parking in the downtown core. So this summer, we asked our on-call consultant, Clark Worth of Consor, to come into town and talk to some 30 of our parking stakeholders, downtown businesses, city staff. There were some outcomes from that he summarized that I thought were pretty telling. First of all, there's a growing awareness of parking and the vitality of downtown, that having a good parking product does encourage business, encourage people to come downtown. With the proposed outdoor events center, the stakeholders are considering now how downtown parking's working very carefully, and maybe the impacts that might have to their business going forward. There's also a growing cause for anxiety and proliferation of downtown events. I haven't seen a lot of new events lately, but many of them are growing in size and scope. But there is some anxiety about parking while there are events going on downtown. The new pressure we're seeing is created by downtown residents. There's about 2,000 residents downtown, as I understand. And so the residents themselves may also be looking for free on-street parking, and so that may be causing some of the parking congestion that we're seeing downtown as well. Parking enforcement in general is more effective than it used to be, but many businesses reported that they still continue to see employees park on street, not their employees, mind you, but somebody else's employees. There's still some question about the current time limits. Some businesses would like to see us go to 120 minutes. The struggle with going to a 2-hour time limit is that that gives people that get a break every 2 hours an opportunity to go out and move their vehicle, and it just creates more parking occupancy. And last, city management and downtown leadership are not necessarily opposed to making changes to our parking structures. So this was a very introductory presentation. We're going to be starting in earnest working on this. If you want to go back and read the old studies, they're all available online. But we're going to do an occupancy study weekday and weekends of a Silver Tips event in January. We're going to bring in Rick Williams, who worked on our original study, so he's got the model already built out largely. So it's a matter of going out and collecting the data and validating that we are at or above the levels that we were pre-COVID. Looking at a larger utilization and study in April and May, it's not a good idea to count your parking occupancy in the winter. That's usually done in the spring or early summer to get a more accurate picture. And then hopefully develop a downtown strategy and a plan and implement recommendations on a realistic schedule. In talking with Salem, who just turned on their pay to park system, not saying that that's the direction the city will go, absolutely, but it was roughly 2 years start to finish was their experience. Bellingham was also very similar, but somewhat shorter. There'll need to be some code revisions in all likelihood. And then a big part is education and outreach to the businesses downtown. We have Downtown Everett Association, which has been a strong supporter of all the parking decisions downtown. But it's going to require that personal touch. That's one thing we got from Salem and turning theirs on. There was just a lot of work done in the downtown businesses gaining support. So that is all I have. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
We all have questions. Zarlingo?
Let me start with a couple of them. Maybe I'll do one and then we'll kind of round robin here. I think there's success and growing success in downtown in providing more housing. There's typically multifamily rental. I know there are a number of developments going on, and I can imagine how that would provoke more parking for guests. And so what I'm wondering about is, how do we handle or encourage these large multi-story developments in terms of providing some guest parking, or do they do that? What's the situation there?
Yeah, the most of the buildings that are going in now have some dedicated parking for residents, and then they have some overflow in their garages. We don't do guest parking downtown, just like we don't do residential parking zone permits downtown. So people that come for shorter terms, currently at 90 minutes, have an opportunity to go visit, but longer term stays, they have to find alternate parking, whether that's parking at Everett Park and walking. But
and we don't require, for example, a certain percentage or amount of guest slots in the parking garages of those
no
new buildings. Okay.
But I will say one thing that is an advantage of pay to parking is that people, if they want to stay longer than 90 minutes, they can without risking. If your desire is to stay 2 hours or 3 hours or 4 hours. That's definitely on the table with pay to park.
And that was one of the things I think that was in your slides in terms of an opportunity for employees who want longer term parking. If they're willing to pay for that, they can do that way.
Yes, absolutely.
I'll yield to another and ask another question in a minute.
Yeah, Councilmember Ryan.
Thank you. To piggyback on that, that's excellent questions. I was curious if any of the like larger buildings that have either a lot of tenants or a lot of employees that work there that do have parking on site, if there's a minimum requirement for occupancy of those parking stalls. So if a resident would rather use our street parking instead of pay to park at the apartment building, how can we incentivize the apartments to make sure that their parking stalls are being fully utilized, or at least mostly?
Yeah, that's really a planning question. I'm going to have to defer to them and what they have in their planning requirements. I think part of that is market driven, that if people want to have an attractive product, apartment or whatever it might be, they're going to provide some of that availability. We have been approached by apartment complexes that can we have some longer term parking or some residential parking, to which we just have to say, no, that's not available downtown. So there's no reasonable expectation that there is long-term parking downtown.
So I would think as a renter with rental costs as high as they already are, if I'm already maxed out on paying just my rent, and then I would gamble between just parking on the street over paying another like $100 or whatever to have a designated spot in a garage. So the building owner, I think if there was like a minimum requirement to have their on-site slots filled, they might drop their price a little bit more to make sure that more slots are filled instead of folks taking the gamble just to park on the street, if that makes sense. So something to keep in mind. Also to keep in mind, council's been hearing a lot from the business owners downtown with frustrations about that they would like to have more access to park on the street or have a special permit specifically for business owners so that they can, especially if they have odd hours or, they're running the shop by themselves, they don't have to worry about leaving the shop to move their car. If they're, I've also heard concerns from business owners that if they use a lot, a parking lot like at Everett Park, but their shops, over on the other end of Hewitt, and they have to go back and forth between their car late at night, that can be a bit of a challenge to run their shop. So if during conversations there can be a consideration for parking permits or something along those lines for the business owners, I think the business owners downtown, I think that would go a long ways to help with the outreach and buy-in from business owners downtown.
Great. Thank you for that suggestion.
I have one more quick thing. And then I was having deja vu that this council committee had discussed the 2019 study. I believe it was earlier this year, maybe, or we reviewed the study and kind of went through and took a look at what was maybe still relevant. There were a few things that had already been implemented, which was great to see. So I don't quite remember specifically when that meeting was, but it might be helpful to review to kind of get a good pulse on discussions that had already happened by council. So thanks.
Thank you. And I have a couple questions and also a note. I was we have new First Fridays, late shift or something. Yes, it is called late shift. I was actually out on a Friday night, which is actually not typical because I don't live in the north end. But I went and parked in the council lot because we have that. And lo and behold, there was 2 other spots that were not council members and that was being taken up. So I can see from that time that people are parking wherever they can find a parking spot. That's just an anecdote. And then there's also current legislation about what apartment buildings or really any residents have to provide in parking. And I think we're having a new, I think you know about it, because I think I've heard it from you as well as others and like the TAC and stuff. No longer having mandatory minimum requirements of parking for residences. Can you speak to that?
I think our long-range planning manager could. And since she's here for your next item, I saw her nodding too, so she already volunteered a little bit.
So my point in bringing that up is that could change, because we were talking about just now, where are the residents parking, and can we make sure that their spaces are filled, and can we make sure that they have guest parking soon?
Answer is no.
Yeah, so I just wanted to bring that up.
We have no parking requirements for new development in downtown currently with the new update of the comp plan and the comp plan regulations. Because if it's within a quarter mile of frequent service, which all of downtown is, it got eliminated under the current state legislation.
Thank you. And so I know you had said in this presentation, thank you, that currently the buildings being built have parking, but that may change with new buildings, residential buildings being built. So I just wanted to put that out there as a but question two, I'm sure, issue citations on occasion when people aren't parking as they should be. And so what's a typical citation cost, and where does the money go? Like what budget and for what can it be used? Just general?
That is a great question. I don't have an answer to that. I do know that a disabled parking stall is the highest one in the city. I believe it's $450. And that the typical parking citation, I believe, is $35. But I will know that tomorrow now that you've asked that question.
Thank you. Okay. I think that's kind of it. Did you have another one?
Yeah, just a couple more. One of them is we're talking with this about downtown only. I guess I want to make sure that anybody who's looking at this understands what we're talking about there. And I guess a little bit of context, you mentioned the 85% figure. So I guess I'm thinking that when you're talking about parking being constrained, that'd be like 1 out of every 6 stalls being free, or 5 out of every 6 stalls being occupied as you drive by. That seems not terribly constrained to me. I guess if I was thinking about it, I'd think about it every 1 of every 10 or 12, but maybe that's a personal thing. At least that gives us some context for it. And with respect to some of the, I mean, this is, as you said at the beginning, it's all full of trade-offs, and we're talking about human beings and their vehicles. And so I can imagine that is hard to predict. I guess I want to thank you for looking to other communities, because their actual experience is probably a better guide than theory that way. And then one other question. I know that there's one large new apartment building going in that's meant to be smaller units, less expensive, that I think has 3 stories of structured parking in contrast to the typical 2. Is that, am I interpreting that correctly? And is that what we can expect more of?
Yeah, I don't know that given the parking minimums that we can expect more of that. I would hope so. I think, yeah, the more, the larger, denser the building, the more parking stalls they're going to construct. I think that's why we were definitely over 1 stall per unit in that development. But what the future holds, I do not know. I do find it difficult to for a lot of people that want to park downtown and market rate, that they're going to not want a parking stall. So we do have excellent transit service downtown, and there's a lot of other modes, but people are still driving. So.
Okay. I think that was what I had. Thank you.
Thank you for your questions. One more comment. I'm remembering from the original parking study, and something that I just found really appealing, or some other word. When it comes to the environment and when it comes to finding parking, that 85 percentile is really key, because if people are driving around and driving around and driving around trying to find parking, the emissions and everything go up considerably and make for a more toxic environment. And so I think that would just be a good point when the parking study company comes back and talks to us some more, we'll hear more about that, or at least all of you will. And yeah, I look forward to hearing more about this as it moves forward. So thank you for being here and giving us that information. And Councilmember Ryan.
Last time I got a parking ticket, it was $40.
Dude,
Mhm.
Okay.
last time I got a parking ticket was in Seattle, and it was a private company and it wasn't marked properly. $102. And I complained and it went down to 82, and I didn't even park there. So I'm sure there's a difference between public parking citations and private company citations. So I don't know what the lesson is, but I'm not pleased with that. And that has nothing to do with you. And I haven't paid it yet, but
Well, thank you. And thank you for the personal experience, Councilmember Ryan. I wasn't right. So
It was my one and only parking ticket in the city of Everett, just so we're clear here.
thank you.
all right,
Do
thank you.
All right. Okay. And next on our agenda is parks and park amenities naming policy and procedures update from staff. And again, while I know who you all are, I'll let you introduce yourself. And by the way, I have some really nice cough drops if anybody should need any.
Oh.
So welcome, introduce yourselves and get started.
Hi, everybody. Kimberly Moore, Assistant Parks Director. It's nice to be back here with you to talk about our naming resolution. As you'll recall, I brought this to you, I believe it was October, just for some general discussion. Once I went back to work on it, Alice Ann is in charge of the Historical Commission, which played a major role in the resolution. And so we worked together, and then eventually we actually handed off to Alice Ann because she had so many great ideas, and with her work with the Historical Commission, it really made a lot of sense. So I'm going to turn it over to Alice Ann, and she's going to run you through some of the proposed changes that were emailed to you guys, I believe, last Friday. Hopefully you had a chance to review it and we can have some discussion. And I'll turn it over to her.
Good evening, Alice Ann Wetzel, Long Range Planning Manager. What I just handed you was the existing policy, because I'm going to go through what the changes are. So I thought you might want to know, since you had the other in your packet, what the existing was. And I have to say thank you to Angie for the two of us getting that together on Friday, because the system that we were putting together had multiple sections, A's, ones, different fonts. It was just a mess. So we got the resolution drafted for you and have run it through a variety of people. So what I want to do today is just sort of go through what the changes are. So section 1 basically stays the same. No real change. It was edited for clarity. That was about it. Section 2 adds the entire section to the resolution. So it states what the scope of the policy is. So what's in the new wasn't there before. So basically it says what properties are going to be covered, what properties aren't going to be covered. And that's it, basically. So that's where we are. Then section 3 is the current procedure map, which was formerly section 2. So in the current program, the Historical Commission gets primary review for all naming changes. And it says that it has to be held in accordance with EMC section 1524 and recommendations to city council. There is no EMC section 1524 anymore. So that's a minor detail. Also, if you go to the historical commission section of the EMC, there's nothing in there that says that they are responsible for doing what they're doing for public hearings or for naming at all. So
Could I interrupt you really quickly? Who sent that email so I can try to open it up so I have it in front of me?
it's in your,
I'm sure it's here.
I've got a copy if you want it.
Oh, well,
I did bring one.
yeah, send it on up.
Mhm.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's in your SharePoint stuff. I don't know whether the email went out on Friday. Did it? Angie?
I'm not
If
trying to
not,
put
I
anybody on the
apologize.
spot. I just don't have it open. And if I'm looking at, I can't listen.
Yeah, I have to get back to you on that one.
Okay.
Thank you.
You have a
But who's
copy,
this?
so right now. So what we are doing is in new section 3 is setting out the information that's required when a group or a city department wants to put forward a naming change or a new name for a facility. And so that's in there. I don't know what page, or I'd tell you, because somebody has my copy. And when it comes in, it goes into the mayor. The mayor then receives the notification and would check or have somebody on their behalf check to make sure that it's pretty much together and not missing information. And then would for projects that are greater than 2,000 square feet, would notify council, planning commission, historical commission, parks commission, transportation advisory committee, cultural arts commission, and any other such advisory boards that the mayor thinks are appropriate. I listed ones that, and we, in our review, agreed that they have something to do with somebody that may or may not be named, or a change of a name or something. So let's just say that we're changing a street, obviously Transportation Advisory Committee. If we are changing something to do with arts, the Arts Commission would be the appropriate group. They would go to them and request comments on the proposal, not a public hearing, just request their input. So as the Historical Commission, they would come in and we're going to name it Jane Addams Park. We think Jane Addams is a great historical character. We think that's a great name. Parks Commission could say same thing. Transportation Advisory Committee could say no comment or whatever. That would all be compiled and then forwarded to council with a recommendation to approve or not approve by the mayor. It is under 2,000 square feet, like a stage at Forest Park. That would just come directly to council. And council could either approve or deny, or send it out to the same group of organizations. That you wanted more of an opinion to say that Shakespeare Stage is a good name, then, or not. You could, if you think Shakespeare is a great name for a stage, you can have it. You can just make your decision and it would go forward. If not, you want to make sure that other groups are in agreement of it, you can forward it out to those groups. The council would then have final action on approving all decisions. And then they can approve, you can approve, deny, or just sort of send it out or agree not to do anything. Or hold off as you can. Once it is approved or denied, if it is approved, it'll go back to the mayor to implement the change. There will be no further action by the Historical Commission or anybody else. And then 4 and 5 are pretty much no changes, but edited for clarity. But that's the big change, is sharing it out. I have been told that when the decision was being requested to change part of Trojan Way and name of Officer Roca, it was a very tense and emotional hearing at the Historical Commission, but at the same time, they didn't feel comfortable with any of it because it really had nothing to do with them as far as any of the historical elements of the city. So what we're trying to do is make a balanced system.
Okay, question.
Mm,
And I suppose I could probably read it, but
That's okay.
it's hard. They goes to the Historical Commission every time.
Right now, yes.
Right now, that's what it does. Okay, so
Mhm.
all of that to say that now it will go to who it probably best represents. Okay. that
Well, it'll
was-
go to all of them
Okay.
and all of them can put a comment in or not.
And then is it an ordinance?
It
So, like-
is a resolution. That's one of my questions of my esteemed colleague to my left. Is this better as an ordinance? Because resolution sort of, we're gonna name it Alice Ann Day, which I think every day should be, but it's sort of, that's really nice and that's the end of it. But if we want people to follow this and know how to follow this, codifying it may be a better way, but
So yeah, therein lies the question.
I mean, it's fine doing it by resolution. If you do it by ordinance, it's gonna make it harder to change in the future. So
how
it's,
do we get people to know that it exists, I guess is the question after it's resolved.
we put signs up that say that.
Oh, in every office?
No, I'm saying if you're changing a street name, the street name will
Oh, I
say it. If you-
understand that, but I mean, that the process exists.
Oh, that the process exists for this?
Yes.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Clearly,
Sometimes
everybody's
what the
watching
city
these
knows is a
meetings,
bit,
so.
different departments is a bit of a mystery.
I understand that.
I
And
mean, we can do an edge, we could, bring it to attention at like the director's meeting. So everybody knows it now, but 5 years from now or 10 years from now, that's I think what'll happen as a practical matter is somebody says, I want to change, and they'll go to someone at administration, and hopefully someone at administration will remember this policy exists. And we could make to make the actual policy a resolution, yeah, we could,
Mhm.
we could do that.
Mhm.
It might make more sense. It does seem like it's more of it's something that, because it's a permanent long-term thing, it definitely is more reasonable to be in an ordinance as opposed to a resolution. So I was thinking the resolutions for the actual name changes, but the policy, I know it should be an ordinance in my opinion, but
okay.
Councilmember Ryan?
Thanks. Yeah, since I would assume that the new procedures that are laid out could then also bleed into the policies and procedures for each of those boards and commissions. So then I'm not sure, I'm sure they're each structured a little bit differently,
Mhm.
but I would assume that there's like a bylaws or some
Mhm.
sort of like operational thing.
Right.
that they abide by.
That would need to follow on, yes.
Yeah, so there would be then edits of some sort to those different bylaws or
Mm.
procedures reflecting this.
Mhm.
And then that I would see as the way that it lives on and
Mhm.
the message continues to be carried, because every good commissioner reads through the bylaws
Mhm.
before they sign on, so they would know, oh, this is within our power and this is something we should expect as a commission member.
which is all the more reasons to have it as an ordinance if we're going to change the bylaws of all these different other bodies. So
Yes, Councilmember Zarlingo.
Yeah, I think we probably would want to make it explicit so that, for example, the historical commission knew that their role in those evaluations would be if there was historical significance, and there were other organizations, if there were other areas of significance that would allow them, especially because sometimes these things are fraught or controversial or high intensity. It would be nice to have clear guidance about the role of those individual organizations. And then one of the other things I guess I would say is, given different opinions on some of these things, if there is an application, given the role of the council versus the role of administration and the executive branch, I would like to be confident that regardless of administration's attitude on this, the council got notified and had the chance to weigh in. And that seems like that's
That's
part of our
right
role.
in there.
That's
It's in
policy.
there. Yes, council.
Council is always notified.
Okay.
Yes. Mhm.
Thank you.
Regardless of whether it's 2,000 or greater.
I don't have that concern in the present environment at
Mhm.
all, and with anything that's being considered or has recently been considered, but I try to look at the future in this because there are a number of different directions that these kind of commemorations might come from.
And I had a question as I was dealing with this that I don't have an answer to, and I will put it out for general and comment is paying for naming rights for facilities like soccer fields or an OEC or an arena or a theater of some sort. And I don't know what policy or program or mechanism is here, but since we were on the subject of naming, it just popped into my brain and I didn't know. So again, I'm putting it back on you.
That's a
Well,
really
that's a
good
good point.
question. Yeah.
Because that could indeed go crossways. I mean, an effort with a new facility of some sort could go crossways with those separate negotiations
Mhm.
could happen contrary to or independent of policy. And then you get down the road a ways and you've discovered you've not followed that policy that you should have. So thank you.
And let it be known now also that the council committee meeting draft resolution naming policy is in our inboxes. At this very moment, it has been sent. I think my question was not only is this particular thing a resolution or an ordinance, but when the names actually come forward to council,
It
is
becomes
that
a resolution.
a
That
resol-
becomes
okay.
a resolution. Yes. That is in council action in section 5.
Because
of the
when you
paper
were
that's in front of you.
mentioning that it goes to whichever committee,
Mhm.
and it's not a public hearing, because we have had instances where it's like, you didn't have a public hearing, but we did have a public hearing. This is not a public hearing, and I know that public hearings are required
Mhm.
for certain ordinances,
Mhm.
so just,
Yeah, this would come back for a public comment at council. And then council would approve a resolution to change Smith Avenue to Jones Street. Alexander Street, because it's, it's
I do
Alexander Day
think
every
that,
day.
though, avenues and streets
I
are
know.
east,
I
west,
know.
north, south, so, let's get this right now.
Well, it's on a diagonal.
Oh, snap. Yes.
Is the committee interested in directing us, the legal, to work with the parks and to put this into an ordinance, or do you happy with just the resolution in its current form?
Oh, goodness, what a great question for us. And we cannot vote at this time, so it would only be a recommendation because we are 3 of 7, which is exactly what committees are for. Notes, comments?
Well, I mean, given limited resources in the city and being careful about people's time and attention, what is the adequate and sufficient way to move forward on this? I mean,
Did council members tell me to do something, I'll do it.
It seems to me, as my opinion at this time, that a resolution should be fine. Like, we have, as long as it is in the city, on the website where people can go back and find it, because I have found a lot of things, not necessarily easily, but I know where to find them, in our many pages of the internet. Go for it.
The idea in general is that a resolution reflects a, one-time change where an ordinance is establishing an ongoing policy. And it seems like this really is an ongoing policy. And if it's in an ordinance, then it's in the EMC, and it'll be, in section 1, there'll be a little subsection on naming things, and everybody will know where to find it. And they won't have to go search for resolution 6537 passed in 2012.
Nobody's gonna remember.
Yeah. And
well, and
so
also
I think
names are, a statement, a fairly clear statement in some cases about the sense of the policy of the city. And so in that sense, then the
And
ordinance
it's
seems like a more.
because all the work is already done. It's not like it's going to be a ton of work to put it into an ordinance for legal. It's just a matter of, if anything, you guys will probably spend more time reading the name of the ordinance than I will working on it because she's already done all the work.
I
So
do think for sure it should be an ordinance if there's cost involved, not cost, but naming, purchasing of a name, if that's going to be allowed or not. That needs, it needs to be written out because we all just thought about it tonight. And so it's not in this proposed resolution. So that's a thing to think about.
And there are costs involved in implementing it. So I think an ordinance is probably a better ground on which to obligate the city to spend funds.
Thank you. I would also support the ordinance route. I think resolutions seem to kind of collect dust on a shelf somewhere. So this would keep it more active and front and center. I'm a visual person, so I don't know if it would be, if this is like a ridiculous ask or not, but I feel like a flow chart would be helpful
Do
for
that.
this to know, you know, if this, then it goes here, if this, then it goes there. I think that would help me at least kind of get a visual of what
I
a
can put one
pathway would
together and
look
send it
like.
to you.
And
Great.
I think there is one, because I remember looking at this material when it was first brought up, and there is a flow chart, so maybe modifying that.
Okay.
I
send
looked
it
through
to
that
me.
and didn't have really substantial comments to make, so, but I do remember there was.
Great. And since everybody's watching the council meetings and is thinking about their favorite stage or tree that they really want to name, I also want to be prepared in case there is a large number of requests that do come through. So maybe there's like a quarterly batch approval of some sort, or a way to just have flexibility in case there is a large number of requests and then we're not, you know, doing a first reading for this on the second reading for that. And it's, you know, a bit of a administrative challenge for folks. So
But would
guess it'd be
with
resolutions,
the
but-
actual naming, it would be a resolution, not.
yeah,
a
that
name.
would be it. So
So
we wouldn't have
you
right,
first.
yeah.
right.
Mhm,
Yeah, but just having them all maybe at the same time or
mhm.
something might be helpful just to keep track. of
Unless
it.
it's a contractual thing
Sure,
for a specific naming right.
I hear you.
Mhm.
We can certainly do that. It certainly hasn't been something that has come forward very often
High
in my
demand.
8 years with the
Mhm.
city. I think Emma Yule Park and then the street naming for the officer are the only two that I can think of. But it's true, if we put it out there, it might suddenly become very popular. So
We're gonna get like 20 new benches and everybody's gonna want to put a name on it.
Those are.
we already
those
have
are-
a memorial bench program.
And is that a resolution? Sorry. This is part of the favorite thing that I do, and that I'm so happy that we've had this dialogue and conversation on this, the last meeting of this kind here. So thank you all for being a part of it. Is there any more questions or comments on what we're just talking about, parks and park amenities naming policy? And yes, go forward with the ordinance. Sounds like the consensus that we're getting. We'll hear back about it with the full council next, or will it come back to this committee or a committee?
I would think we could go to council because it's really going to be basically taking the policy that you've just heard a whole bunch about and putting it into an ordinance form, unless you'd like it to come back here, but
And then adding sections for the specific boards.
I think
Well,
that
that's the
an
only
ordinance
question.
coming forward to the whole council sounds legit. And then, of course, if it's an ordinance, it gets 3 readings, so everybody gets to talk about it a little bit more. So go forth and
I apologize that you guys didn't get the email in advance. So if you have a chance to
tried.
review it and have any feedback, you can send that through Jennifer and we're happy to apply it before we get into drafting the ordinance.
I think we had a good
Angie and I
discussion.
tried. We really did on Friday. We were having technical issues, but we did try.
We appreciate it. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
I just wanted to thank Council Co-Chair Vogely for your service on this committee.
Yes.
Proud to be here. next, with that, that's the two things on our agenda that we have. So next meeting agenda topics. Wait till the new year when you have new people on board and if this is still a committee and
Yeah.
after all of the good things that will happen in 2026. So with that, this meeting is adjourned.